sweet compassion when my soul's in need. I find compassion for friends and enemies. My own compassion is where my spirit breathes.
Live from Santa Barbara, welcome to Compassionate Connection. I'm your hostess, Gigi Amore. The purpose of our show is to share with you how to connect compassionately within ourselves and with others when we choose to learn to communicate effectively by gaining the knowledge of the language of compassion, the language of peace from the heart. We connect with ourselves and with others in a peaceful and cooperative way. I'd like to suggest you look into this language of, also referred to as nonviolent communication. So with that being said, I'm so excited. Tonight we're going to explore with a very special guest some other ways of getting our needs met this evening, and in a peaceful fashion. So thank you for being back with us, Susan.
This is
Susan Allan. And tonight we're going to finally complete this series that we've been working on, Marriage or Divorce. And this is Divorce Part 3. And this is when we make that decision. So let me tell you a bit about our special guest, Susan Allan. She is the founder of the Marriage Forum and America's leading marriage and divorce coach. Susan is the author of 3 books, including The Merry-Go-Round, and she is also a certified mediator and a certified in brain dominance. Used by 90% of the Fortune companies, her 6-part conversation allows us to create peaceful and cooperative conversations so that all relationships can be peaceful and cooperative. Susan has also been seen on Fox News and on hundreds of television and radio shows, demonstrating the results we can indeed create when we transform the way we think, listen, speak, and act, and focus on solutions instead of on problems. Susan offers a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone has the opportunity to transform their lives. So I tell you, that's quite a gift. I would recommend that you go ahead and give Susan a call and see what she has to say in whatever situation you have in your life at this point.
Thank you so much.
That's a big gift. Now, this is our little thing to intrigue you with tonight's show. There are things that we are all willing to do. There are things we are able to do. And I have learned, and I will continue to learn, and I know that those of you who watch our shows with Susan Allan are learning as well. When you've done everything you're willing to do, sometimes we find that we've hit a wall. Right, and enough is enough. Oh yes, we all get that. Well, tonight's show is the 3rd in our series, and we have indeed focused on the marriage or divorce. And so tonight is the show that is finally about that last option, divorce. Now, Susan has developed an amazing breakthroughs in successful and peaceful, affordable divorce. So that's something that should stimulate everybody's interest if this is where you are in your life. So, boy, this is once again something that is going to be very highly informative when we get to that place.
If they're going to do it, they have to still do it in a peaceful way, in a way that's safe, in a way that if you have children, if you have pets, that there isn't going to be a lot of suffering for either you, your partner, or any of your children or pets. It's really important.
Thank you, Susan. So going forward with this, I'm curious, what is the first thing that we do not want to do when we really feel ready to divorce, besides panic?
You know, the number one thing is, do not announce to your spouse that you want a divorce. That is like waving a big red cape in front of a bull. Even if 5 minutes before you say that, your spouse was having the same thought, that he or she wanted a divorce. If you announce to your spouse, I want a divorce, or I'm out of here, or I'm calling my divorce attorney, or any of that, you are adding so much more suffering, time, and expense to the process. So keep your own counsel, and we'll tell you what to do instead.
I'm so happy to hear that, because normally we get so triggered that that's the opposite of what we do.
Yes, precisely.
Oh, okay. I'm paying attention. Well, I'm not married, but if to be. Okay, well, now, what is the first thing that you should do when you're really ready to divorce?
Well, the first thing that I discovered, and the first thing that I'm telling you, which is absolutely unique, this is part of the divorce forum collaborative model that I developed now 15 years ago. The first thing you do is you have to understand that the financial issue is the main issue in any divorce. In most states of the United States, custody of the children is 50-50 most of the time. So if you've got another situation, some way that you can prove that your spouse isn't an appropriate parent, that's a separate deal. But in the normal divorce process, it's really just a financial agreement, it's a financial contract. So who do you want to help you solve a financial issue? You want a CPA specializing in divorce. Most of you watching the show probably have never even heard that this exists. It does. In any large CPA firm, in any large city, you will find at least one CPA who specializes in divorce. Every family court system has a software program. Every judge in every courtroom that I'm going to show you how to avoid, but if you did happen to go to court, every judge has a software program that he or she believes that he or she knows how to run. You know, they think they're financial experts, they're not. Any attorney, family attorney that you consult thinks he or she is a financial expert, they're not. You don't want to pay a family attorney for CPA skills. And you sure don't want to leave yourself at the hands of a judge to make decisions about the people that you love the most, your children and yourself, even if you're not crazy about that spouse anymore. So please, a CPA who specializes in divorce can tell you exactly what the financial outcome would be if you were dragged into court and a judge would make the decision. Get that consultation right away.
Boy, that's a big reality check. Thank you, Susan. When emotions run so high, you know, it's hard to be so analytical. So I appreciate your clarity for everyone. Now, let's suppose they are consulting a CPA who specializes in divorce. What exactly do they really need to discuss?
Well, you have to bring all of your paperwork with you, and the smart move is actually to put it together and send it to the CPA a week or so before the meeting. So if you own a house, your mortgage documents, and I'm talking about copies of everything, your tax returns for the last 3 to 5 years, depending on whatever fluctuations there might be, all of the community assets, community being a term for the couple that you are, the married couple, so all of your community assets, if you have a stock portfolio, bonds, anything like that, assets, any debts you have, so the debts means including credit card statements up to the day that you're separating from each other. If one or both of you has a pension, you have to bring all of that. You know, every single asset or debt that either or both of you possess. That's what you get copies of.
Okay, a little homework to do. Now, once someone has understood the financial picture, can they talk then to their partner about divorce?
Well, Not necessarily. First of all, you have to get the CPA to be a smart enough CPA specializing in divorce so that that person can recommend an appropriate division of assets. You know, in most states, it's 50-50 assets, 50-50 debts, 50-50 children, custody, you know, all that. Now, there may be some extenuating circumstance. For example, if you've inherited money that is not considered as part of the assets. So you have to get a CPA to really advise you. Once you get the feedback, not once you've sat with them and told them what you think the situation is, but once you get their report back, once you get their feedback, then you're in a position to talk about money. But still, there's a whole other issue called, do we really want to be dragged into court? And you've got to do some research about that, or call me and I'll give you all the research in that 1 free hour. You've got to be able to discuss mediation. You don't want to go into a courtroom, don't want to waste your money like that.
That's something to really pay attention to. Keep it out of court, even if you're an attorney, is what I hear.
That's right.
Now, what's the next thing in learning how to communicate about divorce? Could you just explain what you would suggest?
Yes, certainly. You know, my 6-part conversation allows us to learn to calm ourselves down before speaking. Thank you for putting that up, Fred. And then it also allows ourselves to really hear our partner, really empathize and understand what our partner's feelings and unmet needs are. And after we've really understood what our partners, whoa, that's an interesting Freudian slip. I'm thinking of the children, right? After we really understand what our partner's feelings and needs might be, and we've heard different things from him or her, then and only then would we talk about our own information, feelings and needs, preferences, requests, etc. So in other words, you still aren't going to talk to your partner and say, I want a divorce, and here's what my CPA specializing in divorce says, and this is the paperwork, and Susan Allan, who I heard on TV, says that, you know, that's obviously very argumentative. Obviously, that is really looking for trouble in any domain, right? Not just divorce. So you have to be sweet, you have to be calm. You know, Bob, I know that we've had a lot of conversations about keeping our marriage together. And I know that we've discussed many, many times that we'd like to wait until the children are in their teens. And I know that it's been very difficult for you, blah, blah, blah. And of course, we've talked about the different challenges that the children might have if we do separate. And do I remember accurately the kind of conversations, the way that you remember them? And then the partner says whatever. And then eventually, you know, then you do communicate, listen here, and then you just say, well, you know, now that both of our boys are in high school, and that's the magic thing, right? That's what we always said, we'd wait until, right? So, you know, our boys are in high school. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to talk with me for just a few minutes about divorce. Because you're already prepared. You already know that you can afford it, he can afford it. You're willing to either keep the house or be bought out of the house. You know that the boys are going to be fine, etc., because you've done your homework.
That's a nice place to be. I like that. So, okay, once that you're really emphasizing with your spouse, and you've had, let's say, that talk with the spouse, do you then go to an attorney?
Well, you know, it depends. You don't need an attorney for any part of this unless you have a complicated situation. But most people in the world don't know this. Most people think that they need to go to an attorney right away. And the problem is, you know, if you know anything about medical care, you don't consult a surgeon until other people have confirmed that surgery is the best strategy. If you first consult with a surgeon, the surgeon is just going to be thinking about and talking about surgery. So if you go to a family attorney first, then the family attorney is going to assume that you want him or her to drag you into court, represent you in front of a judge, have a judge make decisions about you, your spouse, and your children, have a judge who's a stranger make decisions about your money, your spouse's money, and all that. Have the judge make decisions about what you are going to do about your house, all these kind of things. Most people don't want some stranger, a judge, or some stranger's attorneys making these decisions, and it is no longer necessary. Now, you can always have an attorney read over the mediated agreement before you sign it. That makes perfect sense. But again, as long as you have a CPA specializing in divorce who's a competent professional and you've been honest about the information that you've given, then it's not a legal issue. It's not about the law. It's about dollars and numbers.
That's very nice to know. I mean, very clear. I wish I'd known that a while back. Thank you, Susan.
Really? Yes.
Well, okay, so now what do you recommend instead of calling an attorney and giving them a retainer?
Well, it's kind of an easy decision. If you're living in a big city and if you're hiring a fairly successful, well-known attorney, you're looking at $10,000 to $30,000 as a retainer. That's a retainer. That doesn't mean that that's what your divorce is going to cost. If only, right?
Right.
In the state of California, the average cost of a divorce is $30,000. And we read the paper, we read People magazine, there are $1 million divorces happening every week. So you don't want to be in a state where the average cost of a litigated divorce is $30,000 and leaving yourself open to such a horrendous outcome. Think of all the things you could do with $5,000 and then multiply it, okay? So the first thing you want to do is most of us have a lot of friends who've been divorced, is ask your friends, did you have a mediator? Do you know someone who had a mediator? Do you know someone who had a great outcome with a mediator? Do you know someone who gets along really well with the former spouse and the children all get along? And who was that mediator? And now you want to do research. It's very important. And please understand, I am not talking about a court-appointed mediator. This is not what I am recommending. And though I am a mediator, I am not saying call me unless that's what you want to do. I'm saying call a competent mediator and avoid the court system, save all that money, come up with an agreement that really works with you, and for your family, and that's the way to go.
That would be perfect. So therefore, the question is, how do you convince a spouse to go through that process of mediation?
You basically listen to what I just said and make notes and tell them the same thing. We don't want to spend $30,000, the cost of the average divorce in the state of California, and all of that. Talk about his needs or her needs, not your own. I know that you really want to make the best decisions for our family. And I know that you just want to save all the money that we can and not waste it. And I'm guessing that you don't want a judge who we don't know to make decisions for us. And I'm sure you don't want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a divorce because our attorneys decide to fight in court. So I'm hopeful that you would be willing to call a mediator. And I got these 3 names, and maybe you want to start by calling any of them.
Well, that's a great suggestion, but the question arises, how do you motivate and inspire your partner to actually meet with the mediator and then begin with the mediator's process?
It's pretty easy. If you've made the case about saving money, now the only time it doesn't work is if your spouse is really furious at you because of the way the surprise of wanting a divorce and your style of communication didn't work. And then call me and I will tell you exactly how to calm your spouse down and exactly how to motivate your spouse to meet with a mediator.
I like that. Now, so therefore, why do so many people actually run to a family attorney at the first sign of any type of marital problem?
Because mediation is fairly new. I mean, mediation's only about 20 years old in most places. And so you just don't know. So if you don't know, and, people have been using divorce attorneys and attorneys for a long, long time, that's what you know about, that's what you do. But tonight you're hearing about something that really is different. It's really remarkable. And, call me and I'll tell you more about it and I'll send you testimonials.
Let alone saving some huge amounts of money. That's another motivation right there.
That's right.
So therefore, when in this process do people actually bring in an attorney?
You know, if you want to have an attorney read it before you sign it, this marital settlement agreement, the MSA, by all means, consult with an attorney. But don't consult with an attorney before, because you know what you need to get, you know what the CPA said, you know what's fair financially, you know what works for you, and if you bring it to an attorney before you're ready to sign it, I promise you that that attorney is going to find lots and lots of things that he, in his own wisdom, or she, in her own wisdom, wants you to phrase a little bit differently. And, you know, do you really want to spend another $5,000 or $10,000 or get into such an argument that now you go back into court? And I've seen it happen too much. So, you know, you can consult with attorneys, see if the agreement has any major flaws, and if you used a competent professional mediator, it won't.
Wonderful. Now, can you give us an example of a mediation that proceeded with, let's say, great success? I know you have a lot of stories, but one that had no attorney at all involved.
Yeah, when I do a mediation, I really avoid the whole attorney participation as much as possible, unless there's a very difficult part of the mediation where it's a legal issue. You know, there's some sort of a legal thing going on. Of course, you have to. So I have many stories, but it's just amazing to me that if I say to someone, you can fight over that property issue, but you know that it's going to be 50-50. At the end of the day, it's going to be 50-50. Why do you want to fight about it? Just so that you can express your anger to your partner, just so that you can blow off some steam. But are you willing to pay, you know, either thousands of dollars for me for nothing, tens of thousands of dollars to a family attorney for nothing? Are you willing to put yourself through this? Are you willing to put your children through this? And I had 2 divorce coaching sessions with a client, and I had 1 quick consultation with her husband, and we did the mediation in 40 minutes. 40 minutes from start to finish. We mediated 5 major points, including 2 major pieces of property, 40 minutes, 40.
Boy, that's a lot. That would save
It's
you a
unheard
lot.
of.
Yes,
It's unheard of.
to say the least.
I don't know anyone who has ever heard of such a thing. And believe me, I had never accomplished anything that efficiently before. It was quite thrilling.
The first of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, but that time thing, that's really amazing. Yeah.
Well, okay, Susan, I know that you're, a certified mediator and that you do something very different in your mediation. Please help us understand, describe what that's about.
You know, the basis of nonviolent communication, which is the basis of this particular part, and Marshall Rosenberg says that once each partner has heard the other's feelings and unmet needs, a solution is found in 20 minutes. Now, Marshall will be the first to say that, getting you there could take quite a long time. But what's really different is that when I developed the 6-part conversation, it's solution-oriented. Part 6 is solution. So I don't handle people's feelings and unmet needs in the way that Marshall does. I am not interested in them speaking about every feeling and every need they've had since they met. Because I don't want to be there. They don't want me to be there because they don't want to pay me for days and days. And it is not germane to the issue of, do we want to be with the children Monday, Wednesday, Friday? Do we want to be with the children Monday through Thursday? Those are the issues on the table, not years of pent-up misery and suffering. So I do an interesting combination where I will hear what they have to say. I will translate it very efficiently and compassionately so the partner understands what the feeling and unmet need is. I will absolutely stay on target with the property and custody and spousal support and anything that is a real issue. I will then use divorce coaching as a complement. If there's an issue and we're near the end of a session, I'll say the best use of resources and time is if you and I talk about this in a divorce coaching session before we meet again. Because if they're meeting with me in person, divorce coaching is half the price. It's over the phone. If they're meeting with me over the phone and the mediation is over the phone, it's still less expensive because there's nobody else involved. I can cut to the chase really quickly, and I can motivate them again. Not to get angry, not to have their children in the middle of this fight going on in the family, and how to get a solution quickly. So that's the way it's very easy, and it usually doesn't take long at all.
I love that. So the time consideration, the education of how to communicate, and to go through it with some ease, regardless of all the details.
And the most important thing is if you're in a mediation with me and you really pay attention, you're going to learn how to mediate with your spouse once you're divorced. Because that's what I want to give you as the gift, that you see me doing it, you hear me doing it, and to the degree that you're willing to learn how to do this, you never have to hire me again. You'll be able to work this stuff out.
I love that, let alone having it be a self-growth situation
Yes.
too. So you're at more peace. I love that. Forget about the ex. No. Okay, well now I know, Susan, that you do teach how to mediate issues that can avoid people suffering and also avoiding fighting about the children. So I'm curious how you go about this.
Well, everyone wants their children to do well. And while it's tempting to get carried away with rage or grief or even fear about what's going to happen to you later, everyone wants their children to do well, everybody. And so you've got to think about the children.
I want to explore a little further with you. Could you give us an example of, let's say, a telephone mediation that has been very successful?
You know, telephone mediation is really remarkable for one specific reason. I mean, it's great for everybody because I can, mediate for people who are nowhere near Santa Barbara, California, or Los Angeles, or, any place that I might go. But what's really great is in some marriages, they just can't be in the same room together. There's so much animosity. Maybe there was domestic violence as well, and they can't be in the same room. And so I've done mediations with people who can't stand the sight of each other. They simply can't communicate with each other. And the beauty of a telephone mediation is that it takes a lot of the pain and the problems, and it just, makes it disappear. Because if they're already separated, they don't really have to see each other. And if something really terrible has happened, you certainly wouldn't want them to have to see each other. And the other part of telephone mediation, the court system, usually when they have one of these court-appointed mediators, they're not very skilled. They're usually just starting out. They don't have real skills, real advanced skills. So they'll put the husband and the wife in two separate rooms and run back like a chicken without a head, running back. And, that takes a lot of time. It's a big waste of time. Bob said he would have the children Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What is your opinion? Oh, Jane said that it's crazy. Telephone mediation, you're able to have them both on the phone. You get it done fast. You get it done efficiently. There's no playing telephone where you're misquoting, and it works like a charm.
I love that. That's perfect. Now, what is divorce coaching all about?
Traditional mediation, you have a chance of taking either spouse out into the hallway and talking to them in a private way, and then you tell them that you're never going to repeat what you've heard, and if they want to, they can. And that's typical in mediation. But why would you want the spouse sitting there in a room fussing and fuming while this goes on? Doesn't make sense. So what I added to this dynamic is telephonic divorce coaching, which I do in between mediation sessions if needed. I do it before the mediation starts if needed. I do it in order to motivate and inspire the other partner to mediate to begin with if needed. So all of the different tools and skills that I have that allow clients to have a more peaceful divorce go into divorce coaching. And that's why the divorce coaching is such an important part, because it can take hours, days, weeks, months away from mediation, which is better for everybody.
I like that. Plus, what great new skills they have on communicating.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
really a bonus right there.
Yes, exactly.
Now, if anyone does indeed decide to go into legalities, how do they go about really choosing the best attorney for them?
You know, you have to be really, really careful, because a reputation of a great attorney is not necessarily all that you need to hear, because there are great attorneys who are able to get a lot of money for someone who doesn't deserve it by twisting things around and threatening things. There are attorneys who are able to support someone in a very difficult divorce and protect the children, which is, of course, something everybody would want. But if you're on the end, you're the one who's not getting to see his or her children, you might not think that was such a great attorney, right? And it all depends on the financial situation. A lot of spouses have made all the money for 10, 20, 30 years, and then the other spouse wants out, and it's understandable that someone who has supported the family for decades may not be thrilled about supporting this partner for a long time. In fact, the situation that I see most commonly is if you've got a spouse who's making some dangerous choices, addiction, spending, shopaholic stuff, right? Please know that those addictions are going to cost you in the divorce. If your spouse is still an addict, you're going to have to deal with rage or drunkenness or addictions that are going to make the divorce much more difficult and put the children through a lot. So please call me and talk to me about how to transform the addiction now, long before you seek a divorce. If your partner is a shopaholic, or if your partner doesn't work, or if your partner is a problem any one of these ways that are going to affect the divorce, solve it now. Please.
Boy, you really need to do your homework. Go about this very, very smart and peacefully in the process.
You bet.
Well, okay, now continuing on, I know it seems to me that most people obviously spend more time getting estimates for body work, mechanical work on their cars than they do when they decide on the legal or mediation services. And so I do know that you'd like to share a great story about how your mediation led to a wonderful togetherness. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, a number of these. You know, I've mediated a number of divorces that have ended in reconciliation. And of course, not all. The really interesting story was a woman who convinced me that she needed to leave her husband. She had a new boyfriend. She wanted to be with that boyfriend. She wanted to divorce her husband. And everything she told me about the new guy was a red flag, at least in my listening. You know, I thought it sounded like a great long weekend, if you know what I mean. And I was very, very worried because she has 2 small children. And ultimately, she decided she couldn't live with being married to one guy and going off with another. She was convinced that this guy that she was running away with was really a stand-up kind of guy in spite of the lack of evidence. And so this is what she decided to do. And mediating the divorce, getting everything handled very well. Her husband was a lovely, lovely guy. He was a real decent guy. And off she went. And 6 months later, she called me, very abashed, and said, "Susan, I've made a terrible mistake, but I just want to let you know I'm back with my husband." And so she had a peaceful enough divorce. There was no animosity. There was no enmity. We handled it so well that by the time she realized she'd made a mistake, she was able to call her husband, express her deep, deep regret for making such a terrible mistake, and they got back together. Now, by the way, There's one side effect that she didn't realize, and I explained it to her. I said, you know, you were married for 10 years. Now you hit the reset button. So you had your spousal agreement after 10 years. Now, if you divorce him again, you will have been married for 1 year or 2 year or 3 year. So, you know, she would have lost out on a lot of spousal support. But that wasn't important because what we were looking at was the fact that they were together. But that's not even my favorite. Do we have a few more minutes for another one?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Beautiful. My favorite reconciliation story was, it was really a great story. This woman told me that she had taken out a restraining order against her husband. And something about the way she told me made me really suspicious that there was any violence. So I just listened, and it turned out there was a tax issue. This husband owed the IRS an amount of money. And she was absolutely enraged about it. And she was so worried that because he owed the IRS some money that they would come after her, because that's what they do. They, you know, if they can't get money out of you, they'll go to your spouse. They don't care. So she was so worried about that. So I said to her, well, you know, it's pretty easy to get an agreement between you and your husband that he will pay off this debt and he will ensure that you are not held liable, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it sounds like that's the kind of agreement we should go for, not an absolute divorce, unless you're really convinced you want a divorce. Well, she was so angry about this that she said, no, 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 I want a divorce. Okay, fine. So I said, well, we have a problem. You know, you've got this restraining order in place. You haven't told me about any violence. So maybe it was less than you realized at the time. Maybe the situation, you know, wasn't such a dangerous situation. I was just, you know, finessing for information. And then she admitted, okay, you're right, nothing really happened. I was just so angry. I wanted to make him miserable. I wanted to make him suffer. Okay, good. So now we're sitting across from the table from each other in mediation. The restraining order has been thrown out. I've explained to her that the IRS problem is not a reason to get a divorce unless, in fact, you really want a divorce. The guy starts telling me about his business when I'm asking questions, and his business is fabulous. He has a fascinating business. He does a really great business. They could have a wonderful lifestyle. And I was really fighting not to get carried away with how they looked like a great couple. They could have a great life together. The debt to the IRS was small. Certainly it was her temper that caused him not to have already paid it, that she was just someone who had the habit of fighting. And I kept demonstrating what empathy looked like, and I kept demonstrating what self-empathy looked like. And I think the whole mediation for divorce took about, I don't know, 2.5 hours maybe. So it was very inexpensive. And I heard a few months later that they were dating. They were getting back together. Yeah, so cute.
That's
it was
awesome.
so adorable.
So
really
are there challenges that you do face with a certain people? I mean, maybe they cooperate in the beginning, but perhaps they don't follow through. Is there anything, pitfalls that people can look out for with the emotions going so strong?
Oh my goodness, I'm working on a number of divorces right now. And I'm also working with a family that already got divorced. And I'm working with lots of different, you know, permutations of all this. And the truth is, you really never know people as well as you think that you're going to know people. And there's always another layer. And aside from my, you know, thousands of clients and lots of experience, people still surprise me. And they surprise me in a good way, and sometimes they surprise me in a not so helpful way. So it always fascinates me. People often can seem very sweet and very cooperative, but they have this one issue that they're not willing to compromise on, and you don't want to fight about that one issue for days and days and days. And sometimes people really surprise me, and the thing they thought was such a big deal, they decide it's not a big deal, it's not worth it. I don't want to spend $1,000 fighting over something worth $500. I don't want to spend $10,000 fighting over something worth $1,000. And then, you know, the light just goes on in them, and they go, you know what? I don't care. I don't really care. It's okay. And when they get clear about what the whole life is going to look like the next 30 years or 40 years or until the children are 18, and then, fight now until the children are 18, but then when the children are 18, you're going to try to motivate your former husband to work so hard that he can spend $20,000 to $40,000 a year on college? And the government doesn't say anything about anybody being forced to send kids to college at all. Once your youngest child is 18, you're done with each other. So think about that. Do you really want to fight now, knowing that there are a lot of things that the government would never support you in getting and that you may want, and that if you keep this cordial and be respectful and be cooperative, then together you can figure out solutions for your children?
Beautiful.
And it's just common sense, right?
I love that. So actually, even in that process of they think they really do want this divorce, with the skills that you teach them, it could help their thinking once again, and it could reverse it or be helpful, but they learned the tools, if not with this particular mate, for the next one.
Here's what I said to so many clients, so I'm going to say it to you now. If you have problems in your marriage, you will have them in your divorce. If you have trouble motivating and inspiring your partner now, you need to learn them now, because otherwise you'll have the same problems in your divorce. If you have challenges motivating and inspiring your children now, you need to learn how to do that, otherwise you'll have those challenges in your divorce. If you have problems with money, you need to solve those problems now, otherwise, guess what? You'll have those problems in your divorce. So what I'm saying is, please take the opportunity of the 1 hour complimentary consultation with me, because if you're calling to talk about divorce, I'm going to point you in the fact that, hey, you're still married, or you wouldn't be calling me to talk about the possibility of divorce. This is the time to fix the problems. Even if you were committed to getting a divorce and you're ready to sign me up that minute to help you get a divorce, the smart move is for us to talk about how to improve this marriage right now. Because tomorrow, when you go into mediation, if you don't have the ability to motivate and inspire your partner to cooperate with you, it's going to be very unpleasant for you as well as everybody else. So that's the secret. Plan now, learn the skills now, and you'll have a better, more peaceful, more fair divorce, and who knows, you might decide to stay married.
That's a lovely option too. I mean, after all, maybe you could bring somebody full circle. I know you have
sure.
that ability,
Oh,
and
sure.
that would be the ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to, sure, but I'm not coming from a point of view, I'm not telling people what they should or shouldn't do.
Right.
The nice thing is, you tell me you want this, great. You tell me you want that, great. If you tell me you're not sure, I'll tell you what I hear. Some people call me and they say, I'm not ready to work with you yet because I'm not sure if I want to stay married or get a divorce. And I say what I just said. That's a perfect time to work with me, because we got to get you clear. Because if you're not clear, you're messing up your marriage or you're messing up your divorce. The style of communication at home is either improving your marriage or improving your divorce or messing up both. You don't want to do that.
I like that. Boy, take advantage of this gift of that 1 hour free phone call, whatever you have going on. I know it will be helpful. Now, I would just like to say that tonight is the final of our 3-part series of the marriage or divorce. You can review this on Susan's YouTube site, and of course you can call Susan for that complimentary 1 hour, your telephone session, and Susan will help with what, let's say, the important decision of your life may be, and with clarity as well. I love that, instead of just your opinion whatsoever. It's about pleasing what they do want. That's so important.
And no snap decisions are the best decisions, right? And using whole brain thinking. So you have an idea that this is when you want to get a divorce. That's an idea. Then you want to look at the facts and the figures and the dollars and the numbers by consulting with a CPA specializing in divorce. Then you want to go to the lower right brain. the interpersonal, the intrapersonal. How do you think your spouse is going to feel about it? How do you think your children are going to feel about it? How are you going to feel about it? And really balance this out. Again, no snap decisions. And then finally, an action plan. And there are a lot of different factors. I mean, if you own a house, now you would have to own 2 houses or rent 2 houses and own nothing. You know, the family that doesn't have enough money and is going to get a divorce because they don't have enough money is going to find that that's the worst strategy. Work out your financial problems before you separate if you possibly can, because then you only have one set of expenses. So a lot of people do a lot of things because they're not able to really think it through. And that's what I help them do. Think it through, get clarity, make the best decision for you, and then motivate your partner.
Well, there you go. She's got the tools to get us covered to have a happier, healthier, more successful, fulfilling life. And I really appreciate that, Susan.
Thank you so much.
Now I'm going to tell people how they can enjoy your column. I love it every time I see it. Ask the Love and the Relationship Coach in our Santa Barbara Family Life magazine. This is also available online. That's at www.sbfamilylife.com. Now, Susan's complimentary 1-hour telephone number is 805-695-8405. Susan's email is susan@susanallan.org. And Susan's YouTube, youtube.com/Susan Allan 2001. So there you go, the gift of Susan. Thank
and they'll
you,
see a lot of
Susan.
your shows on the YouTube.
Oh my goodness.
YouTube Susan Allan 2000. Yeah, there are a lot of them there.
Oh, a lot of information. Oh my. I need to review too. No. Okay, well, now back to our show. We are live every Tuesday night from 8 till 9 here at the studios. Throughout the week, various times. I'll have to refer to Mark to assure you when those are. Now, we are in our 9th year, and we just really appreciate and enjoy hearing how you get so much information and enjoy so many of our guests. That's what it's about. Thank you. And I'd just like to reflect now that if you do have some questions, comments, concerns, even opinions, we'd love hearing from you. You could give us a call, 805-698-8233, or an email, ggmore@cox.net. Also, we would just like to let you know you can go to our website, compassionateconnection.tv, and you can check out all these wonderful guests that we bring forward for you. Next week's guest will be our entertainer, Ravel Orr. And now I would just like to say thank you so much for our sponsor from Lucia Salons. Lucy, I love Lucy. Thank you for your effort on encouraging me to come forward. At any rate, here at the studio, thank you, Matt, Mark, so many of you that have assisted and helped us throughout the years. And here, our personal TV family, Fred Winter, our director. We love you, Fred. We couldn't do the show without you. And Tyler Geck, our exciting technical engineer in there, keeping everything up. And for our viewers, I would just like to wish you all permanent, continuous, countless, and inescapable moments of compassionate connections. Thank you for viewing with us this evening. I hope you enjoyed this show, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
My own compassion is where my spirit breathes. Oh, compassion when broken